r/AskReddit. What conspiracy theories do you think are too logical to ignore? With the number of millionaire/billionaires that are psychopaths or similar, there must be a few super rich serial killers out there. By extension, there must be people making money supplying victims in the same way Epstein was supplying girls to the wealthy who wanted to scratch an itch. With the money, power, and influence would come governments and intelligence agencies willing to overlook or cover up terrible actions for leverage. This makes sense to me. When you can literally buy anything, the only interesting things become those things you aren't supposed to be able to get. The most dangerous game comes to mind here. There are theories that many famous female stars who were blacklisted, Megan Fox is a good example, were blacklisted because they refused to sleep with directors and producers. Megan Fox was blacklisted for quite a bunch of movies after calling Michael Bay an artsy or something like that. Also, Courtney Love openly dropped a hint in a 2005 interview of what was going on with Harvey's Weinstein parties in her interview. Obviously nobody took her seriously because by then quite a bunch of people already hated her. Reports of Weinstein being a sexual predator go back to the 90s. It was almost like an inside joke to Hollywood. So people knew, but nobody had the power to do anything because they'd be buried. David Miscavige, the chairman of the Church of Scientology, definitely murdered his wife and is getting off scot-free for it. Him and his wife got into a pretty heated argument in 2007, and she hasn't been seen since. Lawyers hired by David claim she is still alive and devotes 100% of her time to work at the Church of Scientology, which is why she hasn't been seen since August 2007. In 2013, a former member of the church had filed a missing person report that was closed after a few officers had spoken and seen Mrs. Miscavige, even though there's no evidence whatsoever of this meeting. All missing persons reports now are turned down, since this investigation is forever closed. She is either dead or locked in a bunker. If she is being stored in a ice fridge, it could be both things. Scrodina's wife. Mattress Firm is a drug cartel or a money laundering company, or maybe they are laundering money for the drug cartels. I don't know, but whatever it is, they're up to no good. We talk about this at work all the time. There's an area that has 3 of them within about 5 miles of one another. Who are all these people buying mattresses so frequently that you need 3 stores to keep up with the sales? Freak and R mixed did an episode on them. Running a mattress store involves minimum overhead. A typical mattress salesperson needs to make only a bit over 1 sale per work week on average. The recession was so long and deep that most people put off buying one for years. According to a few different sources, Joe Diaz the comedian being one of them, lol, the cartels also use those Mexican street food vendors in LA and I'm sure elsewhere to launder money through also, as well as laundromats and other cash businesses. In Mexico, some banks, like Santander, HSBC, have holes in the side of banks for the cartels to throw bags of money through, like you see in the movies for laundry or waste in big buildings, but for illegal blood-stained cocaine cartel cash. That this question is reposted every couple of weeks by them to see just how close the public is to figuring out their schemes. And that this response is reposted every time to throw you off our trail. That's right, we are onto them being onto us being onto them. They don't know we know they know we know. New Coke was a way for Coca-Cola to switch from real sugar to corn syrup without people noticing. Switch to the new formula that everyone hates, keep it for a while so that people demand the old one back, then switch it back after enough time has passed that people wouldn't notice the relatively subtle change. The change is not subtle at all once you've switched to Mexican Coke for a while, which is still made with cane sugar. Going back to the corn syrup Coke is awful now. It coats your mouth in this weird gross way that is hard to ignore. Nothing's actually happening in Area 51. The government just keep it so people will focus on it and ignore the shady stuff happening somewhere else. Actually, Area 51 was created during the Cold War as a testing and development facility for aircraft, including the U-2 and SR-71 Blackbird reconnaissance planes. And currently it's probably being used to test few weapons, and that's it. Every country has their secret projects and we all know it. The entire alien and conspiracy theories have only fueled movies and TV shows. That's it. That's what I thought. IDK where this whole notion of government is hiding aliens and shit came from. It's also been clear that there are a bunch of UFO sightings where people think it's an alien aircraft, but in reality it's just a new aircraft that our government is testing out and just ducking around with it. UFO literally means unidentified flying object. People has just assumed it means aliens, but in reality if it flies and you don't know what it is, that's a UFO. Google Maps only asks you for feedback on its navigation when it knows it did a good job. I use navigation all the time, and I find that when it gets me to the destination on time or earlier than predicted, I get a notification asking to rate the trip. But if it gets me there after it originally estimated, I never get that notification. It wouldn't be difficult to program this into the program, so you're likely correct. Google probably figures they don't want to ask you right after they did a bad job. The fashion industry makes too much money from purses to care about making pockets for women easily available. Wanna really have your mind blown? Take your pants to a seamstress, we can add pockets, or make existing pockets bigger. I do it all the time. $5 a pocket, and I measure your phone to make sure it fits in without any issues. The reason Disney came out with a movie called Frozen was so that when you googled Disney Frozen you would get information about the movie and not websites talking about Walt Disney's body being frozen. The same goes for Disney on Ice. In that case, look out for the 2022 release of NTC Might coming to a movie theater near you. I like that people always are worried that Epstein was murdered instead of suicide. What if this was a ploy to cover up that he just escaped or paid his way out of prison? Well shit. So Epstein really didn't kill himself is what we are agreeing on here? Secret societies definitely exist. No, we don't. Well yeah. All you need to do is get a couple of buddies together. Privately meet as a group, give yourselves a name, and don't tell anyone. Bingo, you have a secret society. A guy I know once told me he was part of the Billuminati in university. It was just 6 guys all called Bill who would meet at the pub once a month and tried to help with each other's goals. This one is small and local, but still too insane to ignore, and just came up today. Just recently, our small suburban town's favorite gas station went out of business. Everyone went there, the guy who ran it was the mayor. He retires and sells the property after an issue with the ground underneath the gas pumps. They tear down the gas pumps and keep the garage. Mavis Tire bought the property and opened a new store. A few days after the Mavis opens, someone posts a picture on Facebook of an intersection at a road near it with nails all over the road. The guy theorizes that a box of nails fell off of a construction truck. The police come clean it up, and it seems all is well. Fast forward a few days later, and people are commenting on the post that they're finding nails in their car tires. Not just from that intersection. People jokingly say maybe it was the new Mavis guys throwing nails around, but nothing really happens. Several weeks later, people have been posting day in and day out pictures of nails in their car tires. My dad took my car into the Mavis in question about 3 weeks ago, and they found a nail inside of the right front tire. I noticed that it was driving sort of funny, but never that my tire was on the verge of exploding. I jokingly said people have been saying you guys have just been going around throwing nails all over the place, trying not to laugh at how insane it sounded to say out loud. The guy behind the counter said nothing but yeah with a weird smirk. Over 50 people have posted on the town Facebook that their cars have had nails in their tires. My mom is driving my car now because her car has a nail in the tire. It's been almost 3 months. I'll post updates if anyone is interested. Amazed that I haven't seen Gary Webb mentioned. Expose the CIA for assisting in drug trafficking and commit suicide with 2 bullets to the head. Worst case of suicide I've ever seen. I believe that the U.S. government has men in black that make people disappear if they know more than what's good for them. Welp, you're screwed now. I quite like the missing cosmonauts theory. It's unlikely but seems like it could have been possible. It boils down to the idea that Yuri Gagarin wasn't the first man in space. He was just the first man in space to survive the entire process. There was nothing found about any of this in the Soviet archives after the fall of the USSR. There is a giant money laundering cycle driven by the sale of paintings. It's just a piece of canvas with some paint on it. I may understand some people would be willing to buy paintings from the Renaissance, but modern art is definitely a huge money laundering instrument. Don't want to file taxes on $400,000 private purchases from someone for something illegal? Not a problem. Here's a painting that you can say is worth $400K in a completely subjective manner, with the true item you want thrown in for free. Bingo. This isn't a conspiracy theory, but I find any chance I can to say that dinosaurs definitely had feathers and deniers are just clinging to Spielberg's image of them. I just don't wanna think about a T-Rex looking like a ducking chicken. The Denver airport theory. I mean, the capstone of the building literally has the Freemason logo on it. There's some weird ass apocalypse murals on the walls. The runways look like a swastika. And there's a 50-foot tall horse statue with red glowing eyes. I mean, seriously, who the duck designed that place? Building the airport cost $3 billion more than expected, and the labor was piecemealed out through countless contractors, so nobody who built it knows the full scope of it. Oh, and that 50-foot tall horse statue with red glowing eyes killed its creator. McDonald's shake machines are never actually down. The night crew people are just too lazy to clean it. That's usually the case from what I've been told by people who I know that work at McDonald's. They're basically like, it's a giant pain in the ass to clean, and it takes literal hours to do. That civilizations have risen and fallen far earlier than we currently are aware. And that ancient civilizations were way more capable than we give them credit for. Perhaps more intelligent than we give them credit for, but it's really hard to hide some markers of advanced civilization like mass steel production. We are not any smarter, we just have more shoulders of giants to stand on. Probably too late to this thread, but the idea that there are too many chicken wings for the amount of chickens sold. There is something like 1 billion chicken wings sold every Super Bowl. Where are they coming from? The media is manipulated by the governments, so they can teach us what to think, feel, and believe. The media is controlled by the wealthy, and the media shapes public opinion, which shapes government policy. Rich people control the government. Birds. You misspelled high-tech government spy robots. Shh. I hear chirping. Run, they will get you. That intelligent humans and advanced societies existed before the last ice age. I'm interested. Can you please give me any information about this? Most known early civilizations were centered around river valleys or near coasts. With the rise of sea levels, it's quite possible that remains of pre-ice age civilizations are now underwater, with us being none the wiser. Most if not all evidence would be totally gone if those ancient civilizations existed. Stone structures are all that would exist, if that. If they had cars, computers, anything like that, it would all be long gone by time. Unless it fell in a tar pit or something. Plus, in North America, most of the continent was covered in glaciers that would have destroyed any land structures beneath them, crumbling them to a fine dust. Nature takes things back very quickly, unless they're lucky enough to be saved in a tar pit, frozen, in dry areas like Egypt, etc. Which actually, right now many archaeologists are going up north to where the ice is melting, on land, and looking for old tools, animals, plant life, etc. that has been frozen for thousands of years. The things they are finding are very old, but so far I think it's only been animals and plant life. A North American primate aka Bigfoot. Not saying he's still around, just maybe he existed. It wouldn't be only North American specific primate. Australia has Yowie, Russia has Yeti, Malaysia has the oily man, Nepal has the abominable snowman, and South America has one, but I can't remember the name. Our phones and all the apps on them are listening to conversation. I'm super anti-conspiracy theory, but this has happened to me way too many times in the last 2 years. I impulse shop really badly. I carry cash for the explicit purpose of I can use this guilt-free for an impulse purchase. 2 years ago I bought high-end lipstick with cash in a store, after doing zero research on the brand. Next day I had ads for it despite never even previously hearing of that company before. I had only talked with a sales associate about the brand for a while. 6 months later a very similar thing happened when I switched hair care products to very specific brand. Later that night I had ads for their company which I had never heard of or looked up pre or post purchase. 8 months ago I ordered a sea idea I had never heard of at a bar in New York City. Didn't research the company or anything about it. Not even 2 hours after I left the restaurant I had ads for that brand of sea idea on my Facebook. There's easily 5 to 7 more times I could think of, but these are the ones that bother me the most, because I'm positive the transactions were all in cash. I had never looked up the product before, and I had very targeted specific ads from those exact companies less than a day later on most of my social media. Totally believe. Never did any research about martial arts or anything, but mention wanting to learn Krav Maga whilst grabbing coffee with a friend, and suddenly I get a ton of ads for Krav Maga and Jiu-Jitsu courses. With all the scientists in the world there has to be at least one secret lab on this planet, where they have cloned a human. I mean, it's theoretically possible to clone a human being. The main setback is ethical concerns. Then again, when has that ever stopped some people? No, the main setbacks would be funding, manpower and enough surrogate mothers. Cloning Dolly the sheep took hundreds of implanting attempts with hundreds of sheep. Ditto the first time that ferrets, dogs, etc. were all cloned. You can't just have one subject and stand a ghost of a chance at success. Getting hundreds of women into a program like that would require funding and manpower and bureaucracy that just isn't possible with a few rogue actors flying under the radar. You'd need tens, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars. And it would take a lot of scientists working on different parts of a project like this. Normally a lab gets those people by bringing in grad students and postdocs. Grad students and postdocs join a research lab because it hopefully provides a bridge to a professorship or a lucrative staff position somewhere through the prestige of publishing groundbreaking research with their names on the papers in peer-reviewed publications. If there were such a project happening, we'd see the papers being published. If it is happening in secret, why would any talented researcher join that lab when they will literally have nothing to show for their years of work? A secret project does absolutely nothing for a scientific career, and only someone who knows absolutely nothing about academia would believe otherwise. And one guy in a basement cannot possibly pull something like this off by himself.